Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the No Laying Up Golf Podcast. It is U.S. Women's Open Week, and we got a great preview show today. My name is Randy. Joining me today, Cody McBride. Cody, did you have a nice, relaxing Memorial Day weekend?
I did. A little beach trip, but ultimately some sad news in the world of golf. Also a very it's a sad weekend for me most of the time, but try to put my best foot forward. Remember a ton of teammates that I've lost along the way, and try to celebrate their lives a little bit and everything they gave for me big. So yeah, it's tough. It's a hard weekend.
And also joining us, Mr. Tron Carter. TC, how was your weekend?
Amen. It was good. It was good. Definitely try to take some time to reflect a little bit, but yeah, good weekend and stoked for the U.S. Women's Open. Lancaster is going to be a treat. I think. Randy, I think we're in for a proper U.S. Open. I'll put it that way.
I hope so, TC. We're going to get into the course, and I was going to see if you might have a weather forecast. We're going to do all that in just a second. Let's quickly, since we have convened here, we need to go over Nelly winning again. We're going to get into a few Nelly topics, and then we're going to preview the tournament this weekend, the second major of the women's season, and then some miscellaneous stuff at the end. But Cody, before we get there, who do we have to thank? Who's our proud presenting sponsor?
Yeah, big, of course. Want to give a shout out to our friends at Yeti. You can visit them at yeti.com. And, it might be US Women's Open Week, but they finally have their Father's Day packages available online. There's tons of options on there. You can get stuff personalized, you can customize it. It doesn't matter if it's, hard cups, soft cups, koozies, buckets, you name it. I also want to give out a shout out to a couple new seasonal colors that they have out there, as well as the new French presses, both in I think 34 and like crazy big one. TC, they're impressive. I seriously cannot wait to get my hands on one of these. But you can check them out as well as their fabulous coolers, hard coolers, soft coolers, you name it, all at Yeti.com. Thank you to Yeti for supporting our LPGA content all year long. We wouldn't be able to do it without them. So thanks to Yeti.
The seasonal colors are fire. I was at my local hardware store yesterday, and I was like, man, those look great. I almost bought one on the spot.
I want to know, like, their branding team is so good when it comes to this stuff. It's crazy how they're just like they figure out the perfect little changes. Is like it's not a normal orange, it's not a normal blue. It's always just like a little bit off, and it just makes it
Depth and
stand out. Yeah,
richness.
they're phenomenal products, and I don't know. I like something with like matte, as long as it's got like a matte coat on it. I think it absolutely crushes.
Well, we are recording some late breaking news on this Tuesday of US Women's Open Week, and we have just found out that Lexi Thompson has announced her retirement at the end of this season. And Cody, let me throw it to you. I don't think this is the most surprising news. I don't want to speak for you though. What are your general thoughts by the timing of this, and might we see Lexi continuing to play perhaps the Aramco Team Series, or do you think she truly is going to walk away entirely from professional golf?
Well, I find it interesting that the statement that they released is that she's no longer going to be playing. This is going to be her last season of full season of professional golf, and you can read into that to whatever you want. And we've talked about it before on this podcast that she plays in the majority of their Aramco Team Series events. She's a big supporter of everything that Aramco and the PIF does, and who knows what is going to go on there. And before we get to speculation of what she's going to do, I just wanted to like give her a shout out because she's 29 years old and she's been doing this for a very, very long time. And I
This
think
is
we
our
could
18th U.S. Open, right?
it's crazy. 18 US Women's Opens. That's
Doesn't make
nuts. And we
sense.
can go all the way back to 2007. She was a 12-year-old. That's when she first qualified for her very first US Women's Open. She ended up shooting 86-82, failed to make the cut that year. She was the youngest player ever to qualify for the US Open until in 2014, of course, at Pinehurst when Lucy Lee stumbled upon the stage eating all the ice cream in the world. But Lexi, she's 29. And she's been playing at the highest levels of professional women's golf for such a long time. And I think it warrants a discussion here because in total, she has 11 wins on the LPGA Tour. She has 2 European Tour victories, 1 LPGA of Japan or Japan Ladies Professional Golf Association Tour. Of course, she only has 1 major that was in 2014 at the ANA. Now it's called the Chevron. But I think she's put herself in position so many times. I think she has like 12 or 13 top fives in major championships along the way. And really, like the last 3 or 4 years, she's like completely ignored the Evian because she doesn't even consider that a major championship, something that we have in common with her. And she just doesn't like travel and do it. She's played a very limited schedule. And if you go back and look, kind of when like most people are maturing out of college, Lexi was maturing out on the LPGA tour. And that's when you first started seeing her start to take more time off and put more focus on her mental health. And I think it was very interesting that in her video that she posted today when she announced her retirement that she talked about kind of being in the spotlight and how long she's been in the spotlight, and she's kind of looking forward to the next chapter in her life, whatever that may be. So before we get to the ifs, what's, and maybes of what she potentially could do in the future, I think it's like a good time to shine some light on a very, very long career of her traveling the world with a family that has its own craziness going on it and like doing it at the highest level. TC, what do you got?
Yeah, I got a comp for you guys for her career on the men's side. And I know we're always trying to
Really?
provide context and such. I'm gonna say Sergio Garcia.
Okay.
Came along at a young age,
Hmm.
won one major, had a boatload of close calls otherwise, played worldwide, went to live towards the end. We can see that with Lexi. Battled some injuries as well, kind of went off the radar for a while due to wrist injuries or elbow injuries. So yeah, I think, but always felt like, hey, that, great player, great career. Maybe there was more there. Maybe they could have squeezed a little bit more out of it. So bottom line, I think Lexi kind of shouldered the burden of women's golf at large, and I give her a lot of credit for. I've been very critical in the past times of some of her interactions with the media. On the flip side, I will say, by all accounts, on the LPGA tour, she's been a she kind of did the requisite amount for, and I would say she did the requisite amount and then some in pro-ams and sponsored dinners and showing up when the tour asked her and needed her to show up. So I think that's admirable, and she deserves to be celebrated.
Yeah, I think if you would ask anybody at the LPGA tour, they would say that there's no better kind of, star that they've had at their complete disposal the last 15, 18 years than Lexi. She says yes to every obligation that they need from her, and she's kind of gone about it doing things her way, but also making sure that everybody and every person, company that the tour touches is happy. And she's always kind of carried that, which is interesting because the way that she started with LPGA Tour was not, I think, she truly is a trailblazer. I mean, she changed the way that the LPGA the rules are written when it comes to age and how many sponsors exemptions versus unrestricted sponsors exemptions, and being able to play in Monday qualifiers if you're not getting a sponsors exemption if you're under the age of 18, and made it so the next generation, and we already see them now, whether that was Lucy or Nelly or any of these other people who are so young, can take advantage of it and come out because they're choosing to forego college and have the opportunity to truly get out there and play. Big, what do you got?
The Sergio comp is a great one, TC. I had not thought about it along those lines, but even relationship with media and fans, and I think there are a lot of parallels there that makes that a good comp. And I'll say Lexi, I think framing it on she really carried the burden for the LPGA by virtue of like her being for a long time there, like the true American star that
Mm.
everybody, at least domestically, was kind of pinning their hopes to. She came along right as Michelle Wie West's career was winding down, obviously before Nelly now. And so Lexi was that it girl for a long time. And I can't imagine being in that position. Just like full stop, right? At that age,
As an
you
as an
know,
18-year-old girl being like, "Here you go. You're the face of
right.
this."
I mean, growing up, I just have an experience from the male side, but like growing up and navigating your teens and early 20s is hard enough away from any type of public spotlight. And so when you are thrust into the public spotlight and add on, being a female and what that entails oftentimes in our world and on social media and et cetera, it just for her to carry herself the way she has is really impressive, and to truly remain a fan favorite. I mean, we've all been to several events now in person, and without fail, Lexi Thompson, if she's not commanding like the most crowds, she's right there. I mean, as far as autographs and gallery and just the attention that is on her, is really unparalleled. And so I think putting all that together, where I net out, she's just a fascinating person. And I think selfishly, I would have loved had she didn't need to let all media in. She didn't need to let media in all the time, but I wish she would let somebody kind of plumb the depths of her thinking and really write an authentic kind of account of this time from her perspective. And maybe that's something we can get down the road when she's had a chance to reflect or whatnot, because I think she's just such a fascinating story for all of the reasons that we've said. But I just don't feel like as a fan, as an observer, as somebody that follows women's golf, there hasn't been that like payoff where I really read or watch or consume something that like makes me empathize and connect with Lexi. So I don't know. It's kind of a strange one. It's not a shock. We'd heard rumblings even midway through last year that she was kind of thinking about shutting it down, and you never quite know how accurate or true those are. I could see her, playing a random major maybe here or there on some type of an exemption. But yeah, it's weird because she hasn't really had that like big of a schedule. So I don't think we're like really gonna miss her week to week on the LPGA tour, just because she hasn't won in like 4 or 5 years. She's not really in contention that much, but she's just a personality that's gonna be absent, and I think that's kind of the biggest thing at this moment.
I think the other thing is like I don't think her swing was going to age all that gracefully with all the trauma on her wrist with each passing impact. So, maybe this is just her being proactive too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think the other thing too, TC, when you talk about like the wear and tear of your body and the wrist and everything, it also doesn't help to like, she really has embraced fitness on the women's side of the game more than anyone else. And you can see that by her body. You see that by the way that she posts, and it's truly a passion of hers. So when you're like talking about rest and rehab in order to play high level golf, and I think part of that probably should include like dialing it back maybe a little bit to protect that wrist when you're in the gym, like not going full strength on everything. Like she kind of hasn't done that because it's truly like I would say it's more than a hobby for her. And I think when we talk about what the next stage in life, like people have talked about, Lexi's always had ambitions to own her own gym and to get into like the women's development side of golf. And I think she's kind of the person that would be perfect for that. And you just kind of wait and see what her overall schedule will be. But super into fitness. Like I said, wants to own an own gym. And that's before we get into any other potential collaborations or partnership for what could be an expanding role in the ladies European tour via potential PIF investment there.
that would be really interesting. We still don't quite know where the women's game is headed. Well, let me ask you this: what's the one thing you'll remember most about Lexi?
I hate going negative, but I mean, Olympic Club.
Yeah, that was tough.
Like, that was just because it felt almost it felt like you were watching it in slow motion and you knew what was gonna happen.
Having the
That's
penalty called on you, but not called on you, and like that whole delay debacle of I can't even remember which event I think that was at the ANA one
it was
year.
A&A, yeah.
Mhm.
Like just bad, bad. It was always one of those things where, you know, I think the running joke. I mean, it's not a joke. It honestly happened, and Olympic definitely wasn't the only occasion. But like, she would run out and like get such a huge lead, and she would almost need that because like you always knew that there was like this 9 hole period of like most of the time it's I hate to say it, but like when the pressure is there, like you just didn't know if her game was going to stand up to it.
Yeah, I would say Congressional is a perfect example of that,
Yep.
right?
But I flip it on its head and be like, man, what a absolute like killer when it comes to Solheim Cup and Solheim Cup appearances and having like the team around her and we saw this last year, like, protecting Lexi when I don't think like Lexi really needed protecting. Like she just hit a bad shot out of that bunker and like it became a lot more than it actually was. I think there's plenty of highs and lows out there that you can pick. It just is it's interesting when you look at it and you're like, wow, some of those lows are the ones that are going to stick with you the longest. And I know they stick with her probably the longest too.
Yeah, I think it's the close calls and the what ifs, and I know that's not necessarily the most fair, but I think absent of, again, she doesn't owe it to us, but I think absent of, like, some type of, not reckoning or like, I don't know if Lexi really loved playing professional golf, you know? She never she she never quite looked into it, right? So it's like, part of me, I hope she goes and does her own thing, and it's like, if you don't wanna be involved in golf, like, go walk
Yeah,
away. You don't need to give this game anything more. I think she has spent, as you said, Cody, she has spent years and years and years saying yes and pouring herself into sponsors and fans and doing what she can to advance the game. I just want a definitive, like, profile of Lexi Thompson, I think. And I think that's what, with her walking away and not really feeling like we've had that, I just feel like there's a bit of a empty spot where I don't know what to make of this 15-year career. And maybe that's the beauty of it. That's kind of the beauty
yeah.
of sport, right? It can be whatever we interpret it to be. But I think she's a fascinating, fascinating character. And I think, aside from the close losses, probably just the juxtapositions, right? Her signing so many autographs, but at the same time being prickly with the media oftentimes, or that violent swing, but the sheer athleticism of it. There's just all kinds of different give and takes
Yeah,
with her.
it's like a
I don't know.
dichotomy.
Yeah, yeah. So I Gosh, it wouldn't surprise me if she played really well this week. I know we'll
Yeah,
get into
kinda
that
feels
later,
freed up,
but
right?
yeah, I know. I wonder what kind of announcing this to the world. I'm sure it's been weighing on her for a long time. It's not like she woke up tomorrow or yesterday and decided it. So who knows? She might have another run, and she'll play out the calendar year.
Could she
Yeah,
potentially be like the youngest Solheim Cup captain ever? If they're like, hey, Lexi, you
that's
want
a
to be captain? She's like, yeah, sure. Like, just sign me up for like the next 4 of them. I'll do that through my 30s. Like, I
that's a
know
great point.
everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
She's only gonna wanna do domestic ones, though.
That may
Every
be.
every time we're home for the next 10 years, just give me those.
All right. Well, we'll have a couple things on Lexi in the remainder of the show, but let's keep it moving here. Before we get into the U.S. Women's Open, we didn't really have a chance to debrief Nelly winning the Mizuho Americas Open. Of course,
What? What is that?
the Mizuho Americas Open.
Do you know who Mizuho is?
I I think they're a sponsor of ours. They're not the equipment company. Is that right, Cody? Are they like some type of bank or something?
That is true, Big. This is, of course, brought to you by Mizuho and their fabulous tournament, the Mizuho Americas Open. Who is Mizuho? They're a top global corporate and investment bank, a powerhouse in Japan. TC loves that. And the
Amen.
Americas is the fastest growing region for Mizuho globally. It's the only institutional business in the Americas. If you're an avid golfer, you're listening to this podcast, of course you're familiar with brand ambassadors Michelle Wee West. Excellent host again for the second year of the Mizuho Americas Open. And let's talk about it, Big. You mentioned that we've been off for a couple weeks, but the tour was also off last week. We had a busy week up in Wisconsin. Everybody was together, but Nelly, it's the year of Nelly. It rolls through. I don't know what else you got.
No, I know. I mean, I think it just needs to be said, right? We saw her 5 consecutive tournament win streak come to an end at the Founders a few weeks back. Rose Zhang won that tournament in an absolute shootout over Madeline Sagstrom. And so what does Nelly Korda do? Well, this is only the second year of the Mizuho, but she did not play last year. So coming in, new venue, new course, just had a historic streak stopped, and so she comes back out and she duels the only other multi-winner on the LPGA this year, Hannah Green. They play together the final round. Nelly clips her by one, wins for the 6th time in 7 starts, 8 starts overall this year. I mean, it's just incredible. Nelly is doing everything that we could have hoped for. We talked about Lexi having this burden of being this American star that people are pinning their hopes on. Well, Nelly's doing that right now, and she's doing it in spades. And I don't know. I almost think this win. My question to you guys: I almost feel like this win is just as impressive. Maybe the Chevron being a major, that's a little bit more impressive. But I would stack this one up against any of the other 4, just in terms of sheer impressiveness. And it would have been so easy to show up to this and just turn in like tied for 23rd or whatever, get some work in before the Women's Open. But she won, and I love that it was her and Hannah on Sunday. Hannah played really well, was undone on the 72nd hole by a wayward drive and got out of position and ended up making bogey to lose by a shot. It was a fabulous tournament, and I'm just really happy, Cody, that the Nelly Korda train it's still rolling, and we might be picking up speed.
I think it is picking up speed, buddy. For a year to have this, I know I said this a couple weeks back too, but for a year to have this run in the way that the LPGA calendar lays out, I mean, it's it's perfect for somebody who's riding a hot streak like this because they stay hot, they get a week off before these major championships, and then they can just keep running. I don't know all what Nelly did last week in her week off, but I'm sure her golf game didn't get worse.
Yeah, she. I mean, I think it's almost like a better thing that like, it's not like she played poorly at Cognizant either. She at a Founders, she
No.
finished T7. Like, I think that, like looking back, that may, if she does win this week at U.S. Women's Open or wins, let's say KPMG Women's PGA or one of those, like maybe the best thing to happen was to kind of stop the streak and reset things a little bit and take some of that pressure off. But she basically validated last week, hey, the first, like you said, Randy, first time seeing a new course and comes right back out and wins and proves that the T7's the fluke, not the not the previous 5 or 6 tournaments. So yeah, I mean, she'll play this week, and then who knows if she'll play ShopRite. Imagine she'll play Meyer into KPMG Women's PGA, but it's like enough big golf tournaments with also the commensurate amount of rest in between too. It feels like a perfect setup.
No, I don't think that Lancaster and Liberty National are at all in common here, but the one commonality that I guess I could pull out of it is that it wasn't a tournament where you had to go like 20 under. Like you don't need to put every single round in the 60s, which there's a lot of the courses on the LPGA tour. That's just kind of how they're set up. The last time the US Women's Open was held at Lancaster, I think the winning score is like 8 under.
Yeah.
Very
Grant's par
similar.
70, but
For
yeah.
sure, but what I'm saying, I guess, is like you don't. There's not this need of like feeling to go deep every single round, and that's kind of what I loved with Nelly. Obviously, she had rounds of 70, 68, 65, 71. That 71 is only 1 under on her final round, but I mean, outside of like a couple people who went absolutely gangbusters there, she knew exactly what she needed to do, stuck to her plan, and her and Jason just went out and got it again. Obviously, a little slip at the very end by Hannah Green on that 18th tee shot, but I kind of like this how we're I think it's a perfect setup for what we're expecting from this US Women's Open. And if it goes crazy deep, I think that would probably be shocking to all of us.
Yeah, we'll talk about the course here in a few, but like you know, there's you gotta it should play right into her hands, right? Driving the ball best of anybody in the world, and you know,
Y yeah, it's
big
like,
time iron
what's
play.
what's the relative flaw in her game right now, right? Because the putting's fine, right? Find
Yep.
a new slant. When the putting's fine, the chipping's world class, the tee to green we know is world class. It's like, again, her floor, it feels like her floor is like a top 10, and
Yeah,
it's just if anybody can
her
get
floor
hot.
feels like a top 5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
right now she's plus 105 for a top 5. She's plus 360 to win. And you know, you look back at what she's done this year, she's won on a variety of different courses. Like it was, you know, the one out in
Right.
Arizona was crazy deep. The one at
And cold and windy and like
yeah,
you
but
name
then, you know,
it.
she won the match play. That's on a really difficult golf course. Or the
Yeah.
one at Palos Verdes, that's different, you know, that's difficult or cognizant. Like those are all relatively different layouts. So she's done it on a full range of things. And you know, I think Founders too, like, it's not like she started out poorly there. She shot
Mm.
69, 66 the first 2 rounds, and I think ran out of gas a little bit, but in the long run, that's gonna end up being an asset for her.
So after this win, I have 5 Nelly tidbits that I'd like to share with you guys, if you'll allow me. All little stats and just to kind of set the scene of where we are right now. So number 5, I wish we had the drum roll audio thing, but number 5. So with a win this week, Women's Open week, with a win this week, Nelly would set the all-time record for money earned in a season. Lorena Ochoa in 2007 earned 4.36 million. This would be Nelly's 9th start, so she can surpass that. And granted, purses have gone up,
Yeah.
especially
For
in
sure.
majors, but that Lorena Ochoa's 2007 mark is still the high water mark on the LPGA Tour. Says something, and Nelly could eclipse that in her 9th start this year. Number
God,
4,
that's silly. That's silly to think of.
in the Rolex rankings right now, the current Rolex rankings, Nelly has a 6.67 point advantage. So 6.67 points advantage over number 2 Lilia Vu. Lilia Vu, that's a greater difference than between Lilia Vu ranked second and the very end of the rankings. So Nelly is that much separated from the second ranked player in the world right now. The LPGA, this is my third one. The LPGA, for their Player of the Year award, it's a points-based system where if you finish first, you get 30 points. If you finish second, I think it's you get 12 on down through the top 10. Okay. So Nelly, right now, before the US Women's Open, has 214 Player of the Year points. That's more than all but 8 people have accumulated over full seasons in the last 10 years. So a few of those years, obviously COVID being one, but actually the last 3 years, like Lilia Vu last year, Nelly already has more Player of the Year points than Lilia Vu did all of last year. It's insane. My second favorite one. We're counting down 5-1. The second favorite, actually, this might be my first one, but this is my second one. Since 10 years ago, since the start of 2015, all right, so encompassing 10 LPGA seasons, the most wins on the LPGA Tour by an American is Lexi Thompson with 7. Nelly has 6 in her last 7 starts. So Nelly almost over the last 4 months has won just as many times as the best American over the last 10 years. It's insane. And then finally, my last tidbit for you. Nelly, with her win at the Mizuho, she became the 4th person ever in LPGA history to win 6 times before June 1st. She joins Lorena Ochoa, who did that in 2008, Luis Suggs, who did it in 1953, and Babe Zaharias, who did it in 1951. She's the first American. Nelly is the first American to win at least 6 times in a full season since 1990. So we're talking almost 35 years. Beth Daniel won 7 times in 1990, and Nelly, here she is winning 6 times in 8 starts. So it's just any way you want to slice it. What I don't personally want to become is like numb to just how historic this run is. I want to
Yeah.
celebrate it. I want to be all in on it. And I just these little stats. I mean, it's incredible what Nelly's doing. I've run out of like vocabulary to describe it.
It's also one that she probably extra wants to win because it's a $2 million first place check this week, $12 million purse, which next closest is women's PGA, which is 1.5 million and a $10 million total purse. But I mean, this is 3, 4, 5x what most weeks are paying out there.
Yeah. So let me ask
So
you guys this: what, do we want to venture to guess, like how historic can Nelly's season be? And let me give you some more context. Sorry, I'm throwing a lot at you, but let me just give you some more context. So Nelly right now is sitting on 6 wins. We know that. The last player to win 6 times on the LPGA Tour was Inbee Park in 2013. That was the year she also won 3 majors. It with those 3 majors, we could say that's a better year if Nelly didn't win again. Now, it starts getting into some real heady territory, right? If Nelly were to win a 7th time this year, only 6 players have led the tour with 7 wins. The most recent being Yanni Sang in 2011. If she were to get to 8 wins this year, Lorena Ochoa last did this in 2007, which I think, fun fact, Lorena won the AIG Women's Open at the Old Course, which of course is where they're playing this year. Annika got to 8 wins twice in 2001 and 2004, and Nancy Lopez did it in 1979. If she were to get to 9 wins, now we're talking Nancy Lopez 1978, which was a rookie year, and Kathy Whitworth in 1966. And then this is where I think Nelly should be shooting. I think kind of that 10-win mark in modern terms. Annika's the only modern, quote unquote, modern player to win at least 10 times. She won 10 times exactly in 2005 when she also won 2 majors in that year. But Annika, just to give you a sense, I mean, Annika won 11 times in 2002, which is the high water mark for any modern era. Mickey Wright won 11 times in 1964. And then Mickey Wright has the all time mark at 13 wins in 1963. So, gentlemen, that's a lot of facts and minutia to throw at you. I think what Nelly needs to be shooting for is that 10-win mark. I think that would be fucking amazing, quite honestly.
I agree. I think 10 wins. I think something to point out is we're just past a third of the way through the LPGA Tour season. It's not like they finish up on Labor Day, or the week before Labor Day, like the PGA Tour does in end of August, beginning of September. They go all the way through November 24th this year, and so they're only like 12 or 13 events into the year, right? So there's another 20 events to go. So she's got a pretty big sample size to work with there too.
And in a
Uh,
number of limited field events this fall in
Now,
Asia, if
Randy,
Nelly even goes over and plays, right?
yeah.
She skipped the spring Asia swing, you know?
Question for you though: let's say she does get to 10, but she doesn't get any of the majors beyond the one she's already won, the Chevron. Does that feel cheap, or does that make it feel more like VJ's 2000, what was that, 2004, when VJ went nuts and won 7 or 8 times, but, you
But
know,
didn't I don't think it cheapens it, no. I think if you were, like, to stack it directly against
yeah.
Annika's, maybe it comes in
I feel like you
just
want 2 majors at least, right?
yeah. I will say, I mean, the women's game has to be deeper right now, right, than what it was 20
Yeah, I mean,
years
I think we're
ago,
talking about
25
plumbers and
years ago?
firewomen, you know, 20,
So
25, 30 years ago.
and especially with the era of parity that we have just lived through on the LPGA tour, like if Nelly were to get to 10 wins, and I don't care if she's winning like the 3-day event,
Yeah.
the Walmart, I think if she gets to 10 wins, like That's massive. Cody, as the Nelly champion, the self-proclaimed Nelly champion, I mean, how high of a watermark are we talking here? What do you think?
I think she's gonna finish the season with 12 wins and 3 majors.
And maybe a gold medal?
I was gonna say we're not even talking about the Olympics here.
I
You know,
mean, sure, but, I mean, I don't want that to mess up, any calendar, scheduling things here, but, I don't think that getting 6 more from here, if you think about it, could be that difficult just because you guys are right, but normally I can't remember. I don't think they play, or she hasn't played the full fall Asian swing yet, but I'm trying to think of last year,
but that
and I
said,
know
she's
that there
definitely
is
gonna win
some
Pelican.
some
Like,
injury stuff like Pelican, yeah, like you could even like, okay, we could go a step further and throw CME in there. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure that that her and Jess now are like BMW ambassadors, so you would think that she would go over for Korea for that. And then it honestly just comes down to like how much she's actually going to play this summer when the schedule like really starts to ramp up. But I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing somebody else like winning this week. Like you got to hit your ball pretty far. That's an advantage. You got to be pretty good at striking your
yeah.
irons and
I was gonna
making
say
some putts.
this one kind of shrinks the pool of possible winners. Like I was going through the course and like it's false fronts galore. It starts out with 5 par fours in a row.
Hmm.
There's a distinct advantage for really good iron play and high, like high launch angles and high descent angles, I think.
The only one like Sahali, I don't know. I think there's a little bit more parity there, but then like, I just think if we're talking about this magical year that we're having right now, like why wouldn't Nelly win at the home of golf? Like I used to say like, oh, maybe she doesn't have the game to play in British Open conditions and stuff like that, and like she's proved us wrong all year so far.
Yeah.
Via different course setups, lengths, scoring averages, turf
Yeah.
conditions, weather, like you name it. Like why not? Why wouldn't that happen?
What a dope thing that would be, especially if that was her. Yeah, I mean, shit, if she wins this week, she's two-fifths of the way there or halfway there. And then we
Yep.
get all that debate as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
let's say she wins these first 3, doesn't win Evian, but goes and wins Women's Open. That feels pretty
Which
much like a grand slam to me, you know?
and which would be a high water mark in the women's game. Nobody's won uh, there 4 people have won 3 majors in a year, Inbee Park being the most recent, but nobody's won 4. I mean, that would be even if they're playing 5, winning 4 out of 5 would be absolutely insane. And then she's got a chance to tack a defender gold medal on top of that.
Yeah,
So,
even
yeah.
it's just weird. Like we sit here May 28th, obviously US Women's Open this week. Then it's just weird because I think there's 6 tournaments between now and like basically the middle of July, 3 of them being majors. That's including the Evian. It's moved up because of the Olympics this year, so that's like the second week of July. It's just, what course is going to cool her? Like I think that's what we're asking for here. And if it's not going to be a golf course, it's going to be another player. Hannah Green's tried.
Yeah.
Hannah Green is putting up a tremendous fight. The only other person with multiple wins this year. Maya
Or it's
Stark.
health,
We haven't even
right?
really talked about, yeah, or it's health. And speaking of health, like Maya and Rose and like all those people that we didn't really get a good like litmus test of Liberty National because of that crazy viral like illness that was going around. But like their games are still there. And you're just kind of sitting there looking of like, okay, if it's not a course, it needs to be something or someone. Because I just don't see herself like, she's not going to cool herself down
And this is where we miss Lilia Vu, who is not
for
injured
sure.
this week, is dealing with a back injury that forced her to withdraw from Chevron. I think that's really a shame because I everybody would love to see a Lilia Nelly showdown, and where Lilia was towards the end of 2023 was best in the world, period. And Nelly has blown past that, and so hopefully Lilia can get healthy, and we'll see what she has. But yeah, it's hard to imagine. One, it's hard to imagine Nelly just like not having it. I think that would be the most shocking thing this week is if Nelly just simply was sloppy and shot like, 75, 76, and just was never a
Yeah.
factor. I cannot see that happening.
That's
But
what's impressed me so much this year so far is that her like floor has just been elevated so much where you can tell like she doesn't have it, but somehow she turns that 75 into a 72. And
yeah.
she's like, "Yep, okay,
I
I'm
mean, that
giving
kind
up."
of felt like Chevron a
Yeah,
couple
like I'm giving
days.
up
Right.
3 or 4
Right.
to to the field today because everybody else is, taking it somewhat deep, but like I'm not taking myself out of this.
Yeah.
Or like Madeline and Rose just went absolutely bonkers to run away from her at Founders.
Mhm.
Let me ask you this. Did you guys catch I thought Shane Ryan had a great piece in Golf Digest published Monday. And the title of it is "The Unknowable Nelly Korda." It's a great piece. I won't quote it all, but the crux of the question, and it's kind of the subtitle is, "What does the superstar owe her sport?" And it gets into just Nelly's natural private demeanor. I think she's definitely much more of an introvert than an extrovert, and then you layer on her parents, and especially her father Peter, who's had kind of a spotty relationship going back to his own playing days, playing championship tennis with the media, and just how the whole Nelly team is kind of built to kind of put up walls between her and the media. And what Shane asks in his piece essentially is like, what does Nelly owe women's golf? Does she owe it to us? Does she owe it to the tour? Does she owe it to her fellow pros to do as much as she can while she's winning, while she's on this historic winning streak, especially to go out and promote herself and the game and to try to bring in more and more eyeballs? There's more questions he asked, but I'll throw it open. Either of you guys, did you have a chance to read it, and what were kind of your general thoughts and takeaways after reading the article?
I did. I think some of it comes back to same things we're talking about, Lexi,
Yeah.
but I think the difference there is Nelly, history speaks for itself, right? When you're doing truly historic stuff, and we've seen that a little bit with Scotty of like, people kind of went from saying, "Oh, he's boring," or you know, he's not that dynamic to history itself is dynamic. The chase for greatness is dynamic, all of that. So I think it's a matter of if she continues to keep winning, it's almost don't do anything to damage it, right? It's continue to win. That's first and foremost. None of this other stuff matters unless you're doing that. I think there in the past, that's where that conversation gets more prevalent or more top of mind is what's your responsibility as that preeminent American player when you're not winning, when you're not,
Mm.
there at the forefront. If you're winning, like this stuff kind of takes care of itself and you don't have to go out and self promote a whole lot. You don't like you don't have to talk about, hey, the women's game is rising. People are going to do it for you and you just carry the banner.
Cody, is it unfair to ask Nelly to be somebody she's not? And in your opinion, is the LPGA positioned to market and sell Nelly as broadly as possible to it's cliche at this point. Is there a women's golf renaissance? Can it enter the public consciousness in a way that we really haven't seen, at least since Annika? What are your takeaways with Nelly and just who she needs to be, who she should be, and what's the tour's responsibility too?
I would say that Nelly Korda can be whoever she wants to be and whatever she is comfortable being. And I think as she continues to grow and get used to this spotlight and being the number one player in the world and riding this streak, we've seen that she's continued to grow and say yes to more. And I don't know if that's a lot due to like her own feeling of comfortability of like, you put yourself out there once, it's not as bad as it is. Like maybe I can do more of that and do this one additional thing. I mean, she called into our live show after the
Right.
Chevron, and I mean, last year that would have been an immediate no. And we don't know where that ultimate decision came from the yes, whether that was from the tour, whether that's from her agent and the agency that represents her, whether that's from the manager and like her dad kind of works as her de facto manager at times, or like if that was just Nelly and Nelly being like, yeah, I'm going to do this because I said I'm going to step out there and do more things. I don't think she owes anybody anything. But what I will say is that the run of historic golf that she's on and the availability that she has for press conferences every single week, that I'm actually going to flip this on the head a little bit and be like, I think the tour should be helping her out a lot more than they are. And this isn't the same slow motion Instagram reel of like, oh yeah, look at this. This is catnip because we know the audience is going to enjoy this, but you're targeting that because that's a male centric audience of like I don't think that's any growth there. I haven't really seen anybody try anything new. And we talk about this all the time as a company of like, yo, people got to try new things here. And I thought with the LPGA Tour and all these additional like third party marketing companies and creator accounts and everything else that they kind of brought into their fold this year that they would be trying and doing new things. I mean, for the first time ever, we talked about an LPGA player like on the red carpet I can't even at the Met Gala.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, phenomenal stuff. My wife was talking about that.
Right.
But after that, it's like, from my wife's mind, that's gone. Like, she's not gonna think about Nelly again until she's sitting on the couch again with me this weekend. And that is good for popular culture, but I don't know if that's good for golf culture or trying to, bring more women into golf. I don't know where those lines are at, but I know Nelly right now is trying everything that she is comfortable doing and saying yes to a hell of a lot more than she ever used to in the past. And I hope she continues doing that.
And I think props to her too for what she said at Chevron of we need to broadcast this better. The product needs to be better.
Yes,
The television product. And to that point, I will say like last year, I think obviously, it's sport for us to tee off on Comcast, NBC, Universal. But on the flip side, just to praise progress, I thought last year was their high water mark as far
phenomenal.
as the television product for Pebble, and I'm hoping we see that again. And looking at the TV windows here this week, it looks like we're kind of well on our way to that. Like they've got it makes sense. They're coherent windows on USA, on prime time, or on NBC as far as the weekend. They all flow together. Tea times work, all of that. So that feels like progress as well. Now we'll see if the camera angles and the amount of technology they have on the ground matches that. But I think, Cody, to your point, it's much more now about like Nelly's shown, hey, you know what? I'm up to the task both of winning and sustaining this, but also of doing what's required of me. And I think you're spot on with is golf up to the task of giving her what she deserves, you know?
Yeah, and a little bit of I don't even know if this is like, context or anything, but I couldn't imagine like Peter and his wife and that rest of the family like, they're new grandparents and like one of their other kids is like, a very very high level professional tennis player and the fact that he gets I don't know. I don't want to say if this is like a negative spotlight put on him for being like the overprotective dad, but like that's his only like job in this world is to protect his girls. And I will say this after like really nothing that either one of his daughters ever did, like going through kind of the turmoil that Jessica and her relationship went through, like I understand that they're kind of like arms up defensive and like, oh man, here we go again. Like the media is out to get us here because like nobody really ever knows the whole story because you're never really given an opportunity to peek behind the curtain to understand the whole story. And it goes
Yeah.
back to Lexi big and to bring it back to like your original point, like it would be really awesome, like if Nelly said yes to the feature that we want to write about her.
I,
I understand that popping into the live
yeah,
show is like, we thank you so much. It's awesome, but that's immediate and people are gonna, listen to that for a couple weeks and then we're gonna move on to the next thing. But we also like have offered a lot of other things and it doesn't have to be our business. It can be anybody else's. And it can be more than just a tailor-made media day and you have Riggs and the guys there from Foreplay doing it. Like there's other things that you can say yes to that will, give you the additional exposure that people will be like, "Wow, like that's a different side of Nelly." And that's where the kind of growth comes from.
Yeah.
yeah.
Last thing I've got on this front too, Randy, is like, let's say Nelly does win this week. Going back to what is Golfo Nelly?
Mhm.
Golfo's Nelly a hell of a lot better than what the coverage was last year at Baltusrol. Like that's the thing. If she's going for the third leg of the Grand Slam out at Sahali in prime time,
Yeah,
they damn well better have a better camera setup and a much more robust. Be ready to rise to the challenge if this is what she's delivering. She's doing the hard part. Golf damn well should do the easy part and get it on TV in a coherent package.
yeah.
I'll say
A-
this,
Amen.
Biggie, I know I watched a couple of the, NCAA women's college games and they were electric. And I finally tuned in. I can't remember if it was Friday night or Saturday night, but like the night that Caitlin Clark got her first professional win, and she
Mm,
like nailed like
mhm.
two threes in the final minute of the game to put them up comfortably. They ended up winning by like 7 or 9 or something like that. And I tell you what, like people, a packed stadium, and people like, she did not play a very good game, and people were on the edge of their seats on every single shot, every single assist, every single rebound that she had. And then seeing that crowd's reaction when she finally like they pulled it away at the end to get their first win of the year, which I was like, wow, like that is a needle right there. That is a needle who, by the way, they're like 1-6 or 1-7 now. And that's
Right.
not a knock on them. Like they know where they're at and they're already a team coming together. And I don't know, and I'm over the comparisons here because there's so many other things that go into that era and the rise of women's basketball, specifically when you talk about college. But you've already seen on the WNBA them like doing even more than they have in the last couple years, more airtime, more broadcasts, more pregame shows, postgame shows, you name it, like everything, giving the people they're like, we know what the fans we're being handed these fans. All we have to do is give them the product that they're wanting. And if we go a little bit more on top of that, we're gonna like be in a great place as a league overall. Now, I'm happy to see live from being on site this week for the US Women's Open. And I'm happy with the broadcast windows. And I hope it's a different graphics package and everything else like that. But the one thing that we loved last year was ShotLink. And I really haven't heard anything else about that. And I'm just kind of sitting here thinking, okay, the USGA and Ally and everybody's putting all this money into it. And they got to pay for the Golf Channel people to be on site and everything else. But where is the things that we used to have and why are they gone now? Or have they just not announced it yet?
Yeah, I actually looked for that too, specifically about ShotLink. I did not find specific confirmation. I did see on the USGA website they are touting that you can see like highlights from every shot, every player. So I'm hopeful there'll be some type of ShotLink system at Lancaster this year. Tron, to your point about like golf needing to step up a little bit, I'd even say if Nelly were to win this week, right, that would be 7 wins and 8 starts and 2 majors, and let's say she takes Shop right off, but then goes to Michigan and is playing the Meyer in the middle of June. How Golf Channel, especially up against that'll be the U.S. Open, but how that's treated, right? And that's where it's like, I don't want to put it all on the LPGA. I think the LPGA could do a lot more to help themselves. But I also think it does come down a little bit to the broadcast partners too, like wanting to make an effort and wanting to build something, right? And I know we've always come back to this, but until I really see Golf Channel, NBC acting like they want to like build the women's game instead of just showing up when the contract calls for it. The live from this week's great. I'm sure that's heavily influenced by the USGA, making them do some things. But I think that's the part that's missing a little bit. And I agree, just going way back in the conversation. I agree with you, Cody, when you said Nelly doesn't owe us anything but to be herself. And I think it would be foolish for us to demand that Nelly be somebody that she's not, because I don't think that's setting her up for the success that we ultimately want to see, right? We want to see this generational golf and this person that, could set records and really elevate the women's game. The best way she can do that is by being herself and being comfortable. And so I definitely land on that side of it from you guys, while also acknowledging I feel like anecdotally, Cody, you went through it. We're seeing more of Nelly, and I feel like I have a better sense of Nelly. And just listening to her quotes, like I feel like she's opening up way more in the last 8 starts this year than I felt like she did the last 2 years. And
She's
so,
cool. Like, she
yeah,
seems like she's just like a true golf sicko, and to me, it's almost more powerful for, "Hey, let's get core golf fans into women's golf through Nelly," because she appeals to them just as much as she appeals to non-golf fans or beginners, right? I think
exactly.
that's something cool, is like, let's not just focus this upon the masses. Let's get kinda casual or existing golf fans more into women's golf.
Yeah.
When we talk about future schedules and everything like that, and talking about television and everything, I there was something I it's not all NBC, because I remember I'm pretty sure that Meyer last year was one of the CBS events for the LPGA Tour, and I wanted to go check in. It is again this year, so you have the standard 3 to 6 windows on Golf Channel, and then Sunday you get CBS coverage, which I think is a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it must have been Meyer, and I remember it being the Dana Open in Toledo, I think was the other CBS one. So good discussion. I would encourage again Shane Ryan, the unknowable Nelly Korda. It was Golf Digest this past Monday. Cody, one more sponsor to thank. I believe that's our good friends at Titleist and FootJoy.
Yeah, big. Thank you. This is brought to you by Titleist, the number one ball in golf. When the game's biggest titles are on the line, just like last week we saw, and this week currently ongoing at the NCAA National Championship, the overwhelming majority of the game's best choose the Pro V1 or the Pro V1X. 92% of competitors last week in the NCAA Women's Championship. That's 144 out of the 156 players teed up a Titleist at La Costa, including the individual champion, who led a 1 through 9 finish for Pro V1 and Pro V1X players. Superior performance, quality, and consistency on every shot. That's why more of the best at every level of competitive golf choose the Pro V1 or Pro V1X. Everybody head on over to Titleist.com to start the fitting process and find out which Titleist golf ball is right for you. Thank you, of course, to Titleist for this, and let's go, man. I'm excited about Lancaster big. Let's talk a little US Women's Open.
I'm excited for how often all of us are going to mispronounce it. That'll be a fun thing to track throughout the week. But
Speak for
yes,
yourselves. Speak for yourselves.
Lancaster Country Club, it last hosted the event. The only other time it's hosted this event, 2015. Inji Chun won at 8 under par. It played as a par 70 then. It's going to play as a par 70 this week. TC, I know you've been digging in a little bit on the course. What can you tell us about Lancaster Country Club?
Yeah, so I went back, watched some of the highlights from 2015, watched some replays there, and then went to the USGA site. They've got awesome flyover videos on there. Props to them. I think there's some little nuggets sprinkled in there just with different yardages to different spots and stats from the last time they were there and all that. So William Flynn, this is a big golf course. It's a proper golf course. It's I would say if you're looking for themes, it's you got to hit your irons well. You got to get your distance control right. I think there's only one green on the course that slopes front to back, and that's the first green. Otherwise, it is mostly back to front. There's a creek and a river that run through, and a lot of up and over shots. A lot of shots where it's elevated tee box down to a lower fairway, and then back up towards the green in a big false front, or creek going all the way along the fairway and then cuts back in front of the green. So can't really fake it out there. I mean, this is looking back at 2015, it seemed like there was Stacey Lewis was kind of in the catbird seat. She had two doubles in the final round, and one of those holes that she had a double on was 15. Really difficult par four, kind of a reverse camber fairway. So you really got to shape it into that. Dogleg right, par four, massive false front, narrow green. But it's just, there's spots out there where you can get yourself into trouble, like 12. 12 is a downhill par three over the creek or the river, and you've got a shallow green. You got a bunch of bunkers long, and it plays 50 feet downhill. You get in one of those back bunkers, you got to worry about putting it in the creek in front coming back. So that's going to be really, and it slopes wildly back to front there too. So course gets off to a really, kind of a punch you in the face start a little bit. You got five par fours in a row, and all manner of them. Two is this really cool like infinity green. You've got three kind of plays up and over the river, uphill shot into the green. Four got the creek all the way up the right. It's only about 340 yards. There's a ton of variety out there, considering it's 14 par fours and two par fives, two par threes. So I think it's going to be a proper U.S. Open. Man, I think the weather forecast looks unbelievable.
I was gonna
I got
ask you
some
about yeah, good.
yeah, I got some
I'm glad you get the
moisture, some
weather.
potential showers today. We're recording this on Tuesday, maybe some storms Wednesday, some pop-up thunderstorms, and then the remainder of the week, highs in the mid to high 70s and sunny, like no rain in the forecast. So don't want to jinx this, but the USGA should have their pick of how this place can set up. I think there's a little bit of flexibility on 7. Like they can move those tee boxes around quite a bit on 7. There's some cool pins that they can really, really tuck. Like on number 9, they can tuck the pin left there. Going back to, let's see here, like 15, like the back 9, there's just movement everywhere, just up and down. I mean, it looks like a big walk. Kind of reminded me of, makes sense, but like Oakmont, Arana Mink, Rolling Green, Randy, like
Yeah,
I know you probably got
yeah, yeah.
got
I saw the
nightmares from Rolling Green.
Well, and I saw, speaking of Rolling Green, in some of the videos or pictures I was seeing at
Yeah,
Lancaster, they have the big, like, walking bridge, right, over one of the ravines, which
they do.
Rolling Green had one of those. I'm not sure if that's like a William Flynn thing or just that part of the
Yeah,
country
that's
needing.
that's on number 8. So that's on a par 3, like a really, really hard par 3. It's like 190, 200 yards, small green. Like that is a golf hole. That's gonna expose the ladies that like don't have much
The
distance.
ball striking imposters.
So 14 goes back up towards the clubhouse, which I always like as a feature for, it goes back out towards the clubhouse, and then 15, 16, 17, 18 kind of have their own little loop there as well. So I think 14 is kind of a gut check. And again, elevated green, distance control, uphill dog leg right. And then I think a hole to really, really keep an eye on is 16. They can move the tees up. They did that last time around on Sunday. Move the tees up. There were eagles coming down the stretch. It can play, basically like I think it's like 320, but it can play. They can move it up, and then that makes the layup difficult too if you're not going for it there. Like last time around, Inji Chun birdied that one. Amy Yang eagled it and then birdied 17 as well. So it's kind of a 16 and 17. You can make some birdies there, and then 18 you're kind of hanging on for dear life. So all that said, it's setting up to be like this is an old school U.S. Open setup.
Yeah. I can't wait. Between the course, you mentioned the weather should be pristine this weekend. And last time the US Open was here, they set a record 135,000 spectators came out. So it's something that the community, I think, will really be into, really be behind. It should be a great atmosphere out there this weekend. Just an awesome setting.
Yeah, I think it's perfect market for it. I think Philly's probably, Philly and like the surrounding area. This is what hour outside Philly, kind of starved for high level professional golf. One of those things too where there should be there's long vistas, there's a lot of like depth of field out there. So I think it'll show really well on TV, and just USGA always does a really good job hiring great photographers, putting their stuff up on social, and kind of capturing the setting. There's going to be a lot of layers out there, I
Yeah.
think too. So yeah, I'm stoked, man, and great weather to match. So I would say if you're anywhere in the surrounding area, like get out there, make it a point. It's going to be a delightful golf tournament.
And if you're not in the surrounding area, again, the coverage plan on TV, USA Network will be your broadcast partner on Thursday and Friday. They have it from 2 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And then on the weekend, we'll move to NBC 3 to 6 p.m. on Saturday, I believe 4 to 7 p.m. on Sunday. And in addition to that, Peacock, if you get Peacock, they will have feature group and buffer shoulder coverage all 4 days. So definitely check out Peacock earlier in the days, and then USA Network Thursday, Friday, NBC Saturday, Sunday. The defending champion last year, Allison Corpuz, won at Pebble Beach. Not a great 2024 for her so far. Just one top 10 in 10 starts. She finished tied for 57th at the Chevron. So probably a big ask for her to defend as champion this week, especially with Nelly. And then the real injury note, we mentioned it above, but Lilia Vu will not be playing because of an ongoing back injury, which is a total bummer. Guys, before we get to any picks and predictions, I know that the tee times were just announced. TC, I know there were. Do we have any insight onto our featured groups?
I haven't seen anything on featured groups as of yet, but from a tee times perspective, they've spread it out quite a bit. It looks like as far as Nelly is concerned, she is early late, I
Okay.
believe.
Yeah, I see Nelly going 8:13 a.m. Eastern on Thursday off a 10 tee. She will be with Nasa Hataoka and Megan Kang. Megan Kang's a name might show up in our predictions. She always seems to play well here.
And then for late early wave, you've got Lexi, Rose, Minji. They're at 158. I would imagine that's 158 off of the first hole on Thursday. Imagine that's going to be feature group. Brooke Henderson, Yuka Sasso, Hannah Green right after them. And then Allison Lee, Heyron Rue, and Lauren Coughlin after them. So Lauren's getting some love as far as kind of, premier starting times.
I should mention our NLU coverage. We're going to have a happy hour Wednesday afternoon. So tune in live if you so choose on YouTube, or there'll be a link on Twitter. You can catch that as a podcast episode after the fact. And then Friday evening at the conclusion of play, so about 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to do a live show. Have a couple awesome guests lined up, Jane Park and Marina Alex, who both played in the 2015 U.S. Women's Open at Lancaster, are scheduled to join us. Can't wait to talk golf with them. And then we're going to go live on Sunday again at the conclusion of play, sometime around 7 p.m. Eastern, assuming everything is on schedule. So, Cody, let's get into some picks and predictions here. I'm going to start with you. We have let's start with Low-Am. A whole host of amateurs in the field this week. Who's your pick to capture the Low-Am this week?
Yeah, Biggie, it's hard to look somewhere else besides somebody who continues to just play phenomenal golf. We thought that after her win at the Augusta National Women's Amateur that she might be a little overwhelmed going to the Chevron immediately afterwards, leaving her team behind. That wasn't the case. Of course, I'm talking about Lottie Woad. She played well. She ended up making the cut at Chevron. Continued, went and joined her team back up. Ended up taking runner up. She ended up getting clipped by 3, I think, at national championship last week, but playing some phenomenal golf. Excited to see her continue and just kind of hopefully keep this like be the summer of Lottie. I mean, it seems like she's vibing, so why not?
Yeah. TC, do you have a different low am pick?
I do. I'm going down the board a little bit. Number 38 ranked amateur in the world. I think she's from this part of the country. Mega Gane. I think this sets up nice for her. She's a relatively streaky player. She played well at NCAA's, finished T10. No rounds in the 60s there, but really, I feel like she's a horse for kind of tougher golf courses. Played really well at
Yep.
Olympic Club a few years back, and should be riding some confidence after that national championship team victory.
I like that pick. Yeah, I could see her. What has it been? 3 years since the Olympic Club little run she went on. Cody, I have Lottie Woad as well. She's my official pick, but I just wanted to. I think probably the am that I'm most curious to see how she does. Asterisk Tally. She's the youngest person competing this year, just over 15 years of age. Just won with her partner. Was it the U.S. Am four ball? I believe.
Yep.
Loads of talent. So I think probably a name that we're going to see a lot of, whether it be Anwa or, if she goes to college one day, if not, really keen to see how she performs this week. All right.
What's going
Next.
on with Ingrid Lindblad, by the way?
I
That
don't,
She's
that's where I understand where you're going with the asterisks, but Ingrid, like her time's kind of up, man. Like she's in here as an amateur, of course. I don't
shot
know.
73, 81, 75, 74 at national championships. Short
Especially,
play
like, coming
portion.
after, like, the egg that she kinda laid at
No.
Anwa too, not good, and we're gonna continue to see, kinda what the summer rolls out for her because she eventually will turn professional. I just don't know. I think if you're somebody to watch, at least for the immediate future of what's gonna happen on the LPGA Tour, I mean, Ingrid has been supposed to have been that person for a long time now, and I don't know if she realized that, it's gonna be a lot tougher or just there's something crazy going on with her game. Who knows? Maybe it's still part of that airline fiasco, TC.
All right. Next prediction here. Give us a name. Cody, we'll start. Did we start with you last time? We did. TC, we'll start with you. Give us a name for a surprise top 10, and then give us a name for a surprise miscut.
Surprise top 10. I don't know if this is necessarily I think it's in the realm because I think she's currently 40-1. I'm looking at the winner without Nelly Korda. That's kind
Okay.
of
Okay.
how I have things broken out. So winner without Nelly Korda, she's still 40-1. That's Gabby Ruffles. I'm gonna keep hammering the table for Gabby Ruffles. Of
Would that be a
Cody, are you
surprise
saying
though?
that's not gonna be? I mean, according to
Of
FanDuel, it
course.
is.
Of course, but I don't know. I mean, I know they're obviously the bookmaker of no laying up, but I don't know how much their depth of knowledge on the LPGA goes. I agree with you there, TC, and she is my pick for somebody to watch this week. I just don't know if she's such a long
Okay,
shot. But I'm in the
I'll
same
go farther down the board then, because I think Lauren's gonna play well, and then I think Alexandra Forsterling is playing some of the best golf of anybody in the women's game right now, and she's currently uh, plus 11,000 to 1 to win
Ooh.
without Nelly, which is way, way down there. I mean, that's next to Amy Yang and Gabby Lopez, and that's disrespectful, I think.
That's a good pick. Well, let's stay on this. Cody, what's your surprise top 10 or somebody that you think is going to play well?
Yeah, this is where I was kind of in the same boat, but I think mine is I'm gonna say this to get it out there, but I'll give you a real surprise top 10 out here. After this is that I was gonna go with someone who won a major championship last year. All right, that is ranked in the top 10 in the world, but hasn't done literally nothing this year
Ashley
so far.
Buhai?
No, unfortunately not. It's your girl, Celine Boudier. But,
Oh,
I understand that that would be, that's against the rules here because her ranking doesn't match that. But I will say, incredible final round at Liberty National. I think she's turning a corner here. received reports that she's absolutely wearing out the putting lab up at Altus Performance. So all things that I like to hear about Celine. But
I just don't think she has the horsepower for here, right?
I know. Well, that's the thing is I was like, I know it's gonna play long, but it seems like it's still wide enough off the tee that like she's not gonna get herself in like crazy like
Yeah.
trouble.
I just struggle with I don't think she's gonna get herself into crazy trouble, but I think there's gonna be such a distinct difference between having a buck 30 or a buck 40 versus a buck 70 into some of these greens with,
Yeah.
just like descent angle and holding the greens plus just how uphill some of them are too, like hitting a long, a mid to long iron into an uphill 160, 170 yard shot is radically different than hitting a 9 iron in.
Yeah. You're right, but I'm gonna pivot, and I'm gonna go with another one of TC's favorites here. She is ranked in the top 50, but is far, far, far from top 10 in the world. She it tends to play pretty good in New Jersey. We like to poke fun at her because she has a famous her husband has a famous name, but it's not the same person, and that's Jennifer Kupcho. She had a great showing again at Liberty National. She seems to always be like around in the conversation at US Women's Opens. I just think that like it's so weird to say this, but I just have this feeling that she's like it's the time of year where she starts putting everything together, getting ready for summer golf, and then she makes this push into the Solheim Cup team. And I think this is like where it's going to start it. Like I said, great finish, probably disappointing finish at Liberty National because she was playing really, really good golf through, 2 rounds. Then all of a sudden Nelly just kind of came out of nowhere. But I don't know. Jennifer Kupcho.
Okay.
I like that. I had a couple. Well, let me ask you guys this. I think Inji Chun might be a little bit of a surprise top 10 candidate. I don't know if we can absolutely call her a surprise just by virtue of having won a US Open at this venue. But our friends at FanDuel have her at plus 700 to top 10. And she just finished tied for 14 at Mizuho. Good sign of life. She is like literally an adopted daughter of Lancaster. You're going to hear a ton about it throughout the week. She has established a scholarship foundation and has done an amazing job of giving back to that community specifically. So I could see her riding some good vibes to another good showing this year. The other one, just TC, as you were saying, somebody that could get hot, has length, hasn't played in a US Open since 2021, but that's Emily Pedersen of Denmark.
Yeah,
We've seen her in the
great call,
Solheim
Big.
Cup, but she seems a little boomer bust. She might shoot 79, 75 and miss the cut, or I could see her getting hot and being around that front page come Sunday. So those are the two names I was going to throw out. Okay, who's a surprise miscut? That's always a favorite of mine, and I guess I will kick the proceedings off as I have not done so yet. I'm not ready to be all the way concerned about Minji Lee. I wanted to pick Minji Lee, but I actually think she'll probably play well this week. I'm gonna go with I don't know why. I don't have specific reasons for this, but I'm gonna go with Charlie Hall. I don't
What?
know.
Wow.
I know I don't want it to happen, but if I just got to pick
There's news
somebody,
breaking across the
No,
wire right
you're a
now.
bad guy, Big. What do you thought?
She
She got a
was
why?
new boyfriend. She's like she's
there's a
hamming it up,
picture
ripping heaters out
ripping
there.
heaters, signing autographs, cigarette in mouth.
Come on, man.
I love Charlie Hall. I love
This should be
Charlie
a
Doesn't
Hall.
great
sound
golf
like it.
course for her too.
Doesn't
It
sound
should
like you
be.
love her.
It should be. I mean, we got to make picks. Who's your pick, Cody?
Who's gonna miss the cut?
Yeah, who's gonna miss a cut? Give me a surprise MC.
Well, Lydia Ko
Ooh,
sucks. But that's ultimately like the biggest name that I could come up with that I'm like, I don't know about here. I think if we're putting that much emphasis on driving distance, she has the accuracy, but overall trying to get it out, I just don't know. Especially like I thought Liberty National would set up relatively well for her. Miscut there. It's just outside of the start of this year, it doesn't seem like a lot's going Lydia's way.
Nelly might have wrecked her. Remember that was Nelly snatched her soul at the
I
Ford
I
Championship.
blame that on the LPGA staff, okay?
Or no, the
They put the
drive on. That was
ultimate
the drive
jinx
on.
on her, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. TC, a surprise miscut from you.
Patty Tavatanakit, she's
I like
never
that one
finished
actually.
inside the
Yeah.
top 25 at the U.S. Women's Open. I'm getting this sense from her that she likes feeding on flat, easier layouts, which is, unfortunate. She's kind of a week to week LPGA star versus rising to the occasion, uh, for the biggest events. So I don't think people like I think there's going to be some mental errors out there where you're making double bogey from the middle of the fairway after like not even hitting that bad of a shot. You're going for a pin or I think discipline and distance control is going to be massive at this place.
The only thing to add there on Patty is she's having a wonderful season compared to what she was at last year and even the year prior. Only has one miscut, of course, 2 wins, including that Aramco Ladies International in Saudi this year. A great top 10 and finished tied for 7th at Mizuho, T12 at Founders, which I think if we can try to find some sort of course similarities,
Yeah.
I would say probably Founders would be it.
I'd say
Um,
founders and then also like match play too, just with
yeah.
how firm those greens are and how many tough
Yeah,
par
they said
fours
that
they
up
are. And
difficult.
I would say
Yeah.
I would say versus last year at this time, it's a compliment that I'm putting Patty T in as as a surprise miscut.
Absolutely.
Like it's kind of, hey,
Yeah.
you've ascended to that expectation level.
Use that fuel, Patty. Come on, prove him wrong. We want to see it.
Tron, I think that's a great pick. I absolutely agree with your reasoning there. Do we want to do? Sorry, do we want to do
Are
favorite
you going to
FanDuel
pick
play?
anyone or what?
Oh no, I thought I kicked things off. You didn't like my pick.
Who'd you say was going to miss
I
the cut
said
again?
Charlie.
All right.
Yeah, it was
I just
bullshit.
didn't know if you're still sticking with that or not, but that's cool. We have it
Yeah, I'm not
written
going to be
down.
bullied off Charlie. I just listen. I think Charlie can want it a little too bad sometimes, and I just worry.
Which I think that's
I
what we
would
like
love to be
about her,
wrong.
right?
I for
You'd
sure.
rather
And
have
this is
somebody
not.
that's afraid of the moment?
You guys are twisting this. So like, I don't like Charlie. I love Charlie. I love what
No,
she's
you
about. I
said you don't like Charlie.
I just think she might miss the cut here. All right, who's your pick to win? I think we save our favorite FanDuel play. We'll do that on the happy hour.
'Kay.
We'll make people catch that over there. So pick to win. I mean,
I
I'm
would say
Nelly.
pick to win, and then if it's Nelly, then
Yeah.
who's your pick outside of Nelly?
Okay, that's fair. I'm a Nelly. Cody, who's your official pick?
Nelly Korda.
TC.
Nelly Korda.
Wow. Okay, who's gonna win without Nelly? This becomes
Yeah,
fascinating.
I'm fishing in some ponds here with like Brooke played well here last time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, who knows what Jin Young Ko's up to? Hyo Kim, like this would seem to suit her game. I'm getting to the point, Randy, with Lynn Grant, where if
Oh
she
no.
doesn't win, like
Oh
she's dead
no.
to me. Kind of
Oh
thing.
no.
Yeah. So like we were gonna do the buying and selling thing, and I've been talking to some brokers about selling off some stock in Lynn
Whoa.
here. So
Wow.
yeah, so I'll go Brooke. Uh I think Brooke is trending a little bit. I think this sets up really nice for her. Just
Good pick.
putting,
Yeah.
right?
She had a great tournament in 2015. She's having a really good year. Hasn't won this
Exactly.
year, but all her stats, top 10 machine. Cody, you want me to go or you want to go?
I can go big. Don't worry about it. I think
Please.
somebody that hasn't had her full time caddy with her going all the way back to the Chevron, somebody that has put herself in positions to not only win a major championship this year, but also win her first official LPGA Tour event. Came this close, didn't end up pulling it off, but Hads is back off vacation. He's back on the job. Thankfully, I don't know if she paid him while he was out, living the best life ever on every island possible, but it's going to be Maya Stark. I think we see Maya finally rise to the level that we kind of like, I would say a year ago, we're like, wow, that would be crazy to say that. But now I'm like, her play kind of matches that. Like she's a big time player. She just needs to figure out how to get it over the edge. And I think the reunion with Hads, everything, I think it's going to be a really good week for them.
I hope so. Obviously, Maya's a favorite of ours. Definitely be rooting for her. My pick, TC. You mentioned Huju Kim. I'm
Yeah.
fishing in some similar waters, but I'm actually looking at Say Young Kim. She's had a
Mm.
sneaky good year. Her track record in US Open specifically, she's like a top 20 machine. I just think she's gonna be around, and if she gets hot, she could be right up there. So give me some Say Young Kim this week as the winner without Nelly Korda.
Okay.
I played with Young Kim in the Chevron Pro Am, and she was absolutely dialed. And that's the one thing that her caddy was like, "Hey, we're this close. We're like right there again. Everything is lining up.
I love it. I love it. Our fans at FanDuel have her plus 2,500 winner without Nelly. I think that's some
That's
great
pretty good.
value. Um,
Pretty
Yeah.
good.
We'll have our favorite FanDuel picks on the happy hour, like I said. Guys, let's wrap it with some miscellaneous stuff. Want to shout out, we had the NCAA Women's Championships last weekend. Texas A&M's Adela Cernusik won the individual title. She defeated Lottie Wode by 3 shots and Stanford's Paula Martin San Pedro by 6 shots. I was talking to Jordan Perez because I was like, Jordan, honestly, Adela Cernusik, I don't know that name. She's like, it's really weird. She's somebody that's like always been a good amateur, like top 20, top 30, good results, but never like winning. And for her to kind of make this her big statement amateur win, obviously comes at a great time for her, and was a pretty dominant showing out at La Costa. So congrats to Adela Cernusik on the individual title, and then Stanford captures the team title in what was a Pac-12 going out in a blaze of glory. They beat UCLA in the finals. It's their
Conference of Champions, Randy.
That's right. It's their second title, team title in the last 3 years, their third overall. And Cody, what a great moment for Rachel Heck. She's been through a lot, and for her to go out with a team championship, I think puts a wonderful bookend on what was a fantastic collegiate career for her.
Yep, completely agree. Now she gets to go figure out the hardships of what real life are gonna feel like for her as she is commissioned in the Air Force Reserve. But in all seriousness, an
And the
incredible
Friends of
run.
Golf.
An incredible run. And like somebody who like she didn't even really expect to like be on the five that was gonna travel this year. Like and
Right.
then to flip it and play as good as she did at the very end, it's phenomenal.
How
Yep.
about
Good on them.
the Pac-12? Stanford, USC, UCLA, and Oregon were the Final Four. Like
That's what I
that's
mean. It's a joke. I mean, those
yeah,
Southern Cal schools are gonna go wreck shit in the Big Ten next year in
Yeah.
golf. It's gonna be a rude awakening for those teams. I also
Auburn
want to shout
should
out,
keep ascending too. I think Auburn's got a good future ahead of it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
I, I was
big time.
I was going to be remiss. Kelly Zhu, Stanford, she won all 3 of her matches in the quarters, semis, and finals. So good on her. TC, you mentioned Alexandra Fosterling. She's German. She won not the most recent LET event, but the one before that. It was her 4th LET win in the last like 7 plus months, and just somebody to keep an eye on. She's up to 59th in the world, going to be at Lancaster this week. She's played a few LPGA events, but she's winning a bunch over in Europe. And honestly, as somebody that could be trying to snatch a Solheim Cup spot, just a name to
I think
know.
she's a
I think,
shoe-in
yeah.
for the Solheim Cup. I don't think she's trying to snatch one. I think she already has, and she played college golf at Arizona State with Lynn and some others, and yeah, she's racking and stacking over on the let, and excited to see her in some of these, U.S. based majors here moving forward.
And then the only other one I wanted to shout out, again, a couple events ago on the Epson Tour, Fiona Zhu from New Zealand. She's 19 years old, She set the Epson Tour scoring mark at 22 under total for a 3-day event in Utah. Mark Baldwin over at Monday Q Info had a nice write up on Fiona and her decision to forego college and turn pro, and talking about what an inspiration Lydia Ko was to her. And at 19 years old, again, just a name I think we need to pay attention to. I think big things probably ahead for Fiona. She will, by virtue of this win and a very good Epson Tour season thus far, she more than likely, barring catastrophe, will earn her LPGA card for next season. And so, again, another rising talent, which will be fun. So,
Which,
gentlemen,
Randy, on that
yeah,
note, anything to note on the LPGA kind of instituting like a PGA Tour U type
TC,
deal?
that's a great question. I'm gonna have to do a little research and get back to you. I think the one thing,
Because I think they had said, "Hey, we're going to do this," but it seems
yeah,
like kind of dollar late, yard short, dollar late. I don't know what that phrase is. I don't know where I'm going with that, but
a
like
day late and a
day late
dollar
and a
short.
dollar short.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems a little bit haphazard or a little bit incomplete, I think. So I'll be curious to see how they roll that out.
I think that's a great future topic. We can get Jordan. I know that's been a very much a passion point for Jordan Perez. I feel like we could bring her in to chat about that. But I guess praise progress. They're doing something. I think from the little I read, it's not like automatic that the best amateurs are necessarily going to like get their card. But I need to read some of the finer print. So
Yeah. I'd be curious to see if it comes through college versus amateur. Because like you look at a Gianna
yeah,
Clemente as well, who won the AJGA portion of the Mizuho, and she looks like a bona fide future star, right?
yeah, yeah. So, well, gentlemen, that's all I had. If there's nothing else, we'll look forward. You can catch us on the U.S. Women's Open happy hour Wednesday afternoon, and then live shows Friday evening, Sunday evening. TC told us the weather's going to be great. The course is going to be fantastic. The atmosphere, the support should be fantastic. Really looking forward to this one. Thank you guys for helping me get ready for it and get excited for it.
Crack on, big.